right, everybody, welcome in. It's Monday night. And you know what that means. Monday night is the three amigos here on the LTL. I want to say media, but I've kind of dropped the media. So just the LTL show. Welcome in, everybody. Good to see everybody here in the chat. I see channel members. I see subscribers. It's really nice. If your first time in here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We have a lot of things to get into. It's like you start the week with a topic and then it just grows legs and there's more things to talk about. So I did a poll in the chat. I asked everybody, what story do you want to open with? I put Proctor, Karen Reed, Robert Brooks, and Kelsey Fitzsimmons, and Proctor was the winning choice. So we're going to get into that this evening. Oh, by the way, I've kind of jumped up into finally the modern technology. I got a new phone the other day. So I got this iPhone 17 Pro. It was a little wild for me because I came from an 11 to a 17 Pro, but this has been probably the best upgrade I've made in years. And it needed to be done because I would be like texting someone and the screen would just start automatically scrolling. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It just got annoying. So I welcome to the modern technology LTL, right? And also backstage, I was actually talking with Todd, and we're going to bring Todd and Nan on in a second here. And I just, was asking him, hey, you a fragrance guy? Because I've kind of picked up a new fragrance that I've got a lot of compliments on. And for you gentlemen out there in the chat, I'll give you, what I've been wearing lately. But this is Paco Rabanne. It's Victory Elixir, I think. Let me see. Victory Elixir. Say that 5 times fast. But I've got tons of compliments on this lately. You can pick it up for like $100, a little pricey, but it's definitely worth it. Good fall and winter scent. But anyway, very, very nice to see everybody. We're going to pull in the 2 other amigos tonight and get into our topics. Hello, Todd. Hello, Nan. How are you?
Hi,
Doing
guys.
great. Good to see you all. Hi, chat.
Very nice to see you. So we have I guess a full plate tonight. I was saying backstage that, we start with a certain subject and there's other things that just grow legs out of that. And let's get into all this. So we'll get into our first story. Obviously, there's been some new developments in Michael Proctor's bid, I guess, for his civil to get back his job and his civil status within the Massachusetts State Police. But look what we just found here. Newly discovered texts from fired Karen Reed investigator Michael Proctor could impact hundreds, not just a few, hundreds of cases, a legal expert says. And the good thing is we have our own legal expert on here tonight, so she'll be able to talk a little bit about this. And of course, Todd being a former Massachusetts State Police. I'm not going to read a ton of the article here, but former Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor's own words are the scandal that keeps on building in Norfolk County ever since the federal investigation revealed that the lead investigator from the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office texted lewd and derogatory comments about Karen Reed, defense attorney, also fighting to get that evidence to use in other criminal cases. So they look back, 2013. Oops, maybe he forgot what he had on his phone, but the black and white data never lies. And he's obviously been in his bid to appeal to get his job back. He just obviously withdrew that bid because of everything that's been disclosed. But I want to go down here. That says, where was it in the article? Sources tell WBZI team the context of the texts include racial slurs and inappropriate language. The new discovery was enough for the disgraced trooper to withdraw his appeal to get back his job after being fired in Massachusetts State Police in March. I'm going to go to Todd first. Todd, what are your thoughts? And we're seeing the ripple effect here across not just a couple of cases that we've been watching, now hundreds. What are your thoughts on this, Todd?
Let me start with, and I want to outline this for the chat. Proctor's defense, and here's the irony. Proctor's defense was going to be twofold. One, my charges aren't as bad as other people that have been disciplined within the department, right? So that is that strategy. But the ironic part is that he's claiming that the state police selected offenses and then tried to build the case. Does that sound vaguely familiar as a strategy, the Karen Reed investigation?
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Nan. It sounds very, very familiar.
I mean,
Yeah, it's they're
the irony is it's just you can't make this stuff up.
yeah, I mean they're taking a page out of another playbook, which sounds very familiar. I love the strategies that you pull out of this, Todd, and it absolutely was a twofold approach by Proctor. I mean, I have so much to say, but when I heard this last week, and it might have been when I was driving up to New England, and I was like, "Oh my God, I need to hear all about this." And I'm thinking to myself, I never would have filed the appeal if I were Proctor, because it completely backfired and he did not think it through. I think he lied to his attorney. I've been lied to by clients many times, and I try to tell them when I meet them in cases when I know that their credibility matters. You got to tell me the truth now. Are you hiding any skeletons in your closet? Because I have my own reputation to protect. I don't want to lose credibility before a quote unquote tribunal. And that is a little bit of, I'm sure, what his attorney weighed in his own mind. And probably his attorney gave him some guidance at the time, right prior to withdrawing the appeal, which was, I can't go any further with you. You tied my hands on this. You made me think you were this puppies and rainbow kind of guy who was getting a bad rap. And like his Proctor's wife had exclaimed, oh, it was really only this one incident where he exhibited this type of behavior. Meanwhile, it was a completely egregious pattern of abuse of process, abuse of his privilege and his responsibilities as a state trooper, which, by the way, Brian, back when this broke prior to the appeal and when the text came out, I remember last year you saying this wasn't the first time that this guy was texting this way. And if any of us thought that, we would be fools. So I agree with you, Todd, wholeheartedly.
Yeah, this is, and we talked about it. I think we talked about it multiple times, in trial 1, trial 2, excuse me. And then, when Karen's case was basically settled, when this all came out, I mean, we had multiple conversations about this. Like when someone has a pattern of this,
right.
and Karen's case was just the tip of the iceberg in this. But if you're having those derogatory conversations and saying the things that you were, shaming someone's body, their medical issues, there's other things that you're doing, and come to find out that is, and this just even gets worse now. We have the racial slur implications. We now, I think there's another article I'm going to pull up here too, that they talked about passing nudes around or of a victim. And, this is just the constant behavior of Michael Proctor, but not only Michael Proctor. Who else is he engaging with in these text messages? Are there other troopers or other superiors? And yeah, we did find that out in with Karen's case. I believe Tully was in those text messages. Buchanan was in there, superiors, and they didn't face any consequences over this, which was strange. They're having their other parts and share in all of this, but it just I want to know who else. Is there other people that are higher in power that were involved, and what public people were given case information that shouldn't be out there, that should be scrutinized and looked at? Go ahead, Todd.
Brian, you may see on the part of Colonel Noble, with new information coming up, they could reopen the investigation and, seek to discipline, the other troopers out of that Norfolk County DA's office. So again, as we've seen, here for several years, this is a story that keeps on giving. I wanted to share tonight. We all, we know people that were strongly against Karen, and some of those folks were on the state police.
Sure.
In the usual line that I would hear was just wait till everything comes out. Just wait till everything comes out. And I heard that over and over and over again. And the only thing that ever came out was more indictment of the troopers out of that office.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, across the
Todd,
board.
let me ask you a question, and I love this question. I love this statement by Thomas T in the chat. He says, "When your union drops you, you're screwed." I want to ask you, what is the if you can just let us know, what is the conversation among your peers and the people that stood beside you in your profession as a Massachusetts State Police officer? What is the tone that they're saying? I'm sure there's probably a lot of troopers that do things by the book like you did in your career that are very upset as well too, or maybe even just other law enforcement officers that or entities that you interact with in your daily life. Give us what they're saying about this.
So there are, as I mentioned, there are those who just have a hard line perspective. But I will tell you this, and this isn't just with troopers, these are with other police officers from other departments, that initially they weren't paying all that close attention to the case.
Mm,
But as it started to pick up with the media attention, they really started to kind of like sharpen the lens and try and follow the case a little bit more. And those police officers did a 180. Like, she's
Mm-hmm.
innocent, without a doubt. She's
wow.
an innocent. So, I don't want to say it's 50-50. I've seen more law enforcement professionals that understand the case, the evidence that was presented, um, and all the things about the investigation. No one can agree. Not one person can validate the investigation, which is interesting. They may have a feeling of Karen Reed is guilty, but all of them to a person says the investigation was shoddy at best.
There's got to be, but there's got to be, friends of yours that are just so pissed about this Michael Proctor thing because it's literally, it's putting a bad mark on the Mass State Police. And look, we've had a history of this, and we've been fighting in Massachusetts to get this cleaned up. And Colonel Noble has now come in and is saying that he's going to clean things up, but it's just one thing after another after another. I mean, they must be pissed, right?
Troopers will take the position that, if a person puts themselves in a jackpot, and the department's going to respond, and through whatever trial board process, whatever the outcome is, and they pretty much move on from it. So, is there departmental harm? Was there damage? Was there, a black eye in the state police? All the above, right? So, all those things apply. But at the end of the day, the position is, well, he made his bed. Now he's going to lie in it.
Yeah.
And I can just add to that. So there's been some recent criticism of some of the rulings or behaviors of female judges on some of the cases that we've been talking about. And I just want to draw a juxtaposition because, as a lawyer, when there are female lawyers or jurists who are exhibiting behavior of whatever type that may call the whole profession into question for jurists or lawyers,
Mm.
or may call female jurists or lawyers into question, I I cringe a little bit about that if they're overly emotional on the bench and the like. And we saw an example, in my opinion, with Kelsey Fitzsimmons in recent weeks where the judge who had revoked her bail, everyone kind of said, whoa, what went on here? And I just wanted to give my perspective that kind of Todd is giving, which is, when it's your profession and it's someone in your profession who might arguably be calling into question the manner in which they are comporting themselves, it does cause you to reflect a little bit and say, ooh, that doesn't really look so good. But I believe in general, what happens as a result of things like this is that troopers now will realize, okay, I got to behave. I got to make sure I comport myself as a good citizen and a good protector of citizens. So I'm hoping that Proctor, if there's anything good to come out of all of this, is that Proctor will serve as an example of what not to do, and that Big Brother can be watching. And certainly, at a minimum, he should serve as an example of maybe you need to delete your iCloud. Make sure you're going to be smart about how you cover your tracks, because it will come back to bite you.
Or how about this? Just don't get involved in activity like that, Nan.
Right.
Stay by the books, do your job, and any
Yeah.
activity that you want to have, do it in the privacy of your home. You know,
Right.
if you want to engage in that type of activity, don't use your work, your work phones, your work emails where you're going to get caught.
Right.
And that just shows his true character. And I said this, that someone like this is born like this. This is not learned behavior. It's inside him. And then there's probably some trigger points through his life that empowers him. And probably
Yeah.
what happened was, working his ranks through the Mass State Police, being around some other guys that probably engaged in nefarious activity like this as well, empowered him. Michael Proctor, his position in the MSP is about power. It's about impeding his power on innocent victims and using them as a punchline. That's what he did
Yep.
here. And it's pretty disgusting that someone that holds a badge and is supposed to protect people like this. I mean, for Christ's sakes, was there anything on there with like minors, things that he was investigating with minors and sharing that shit? I mean, I'm
Right.
just speculating here, but I mean, there's a world of information in different cases that he's part of. What other things that he was doing or involved in? It's just really disgusting to think about. It
I
just
agree.
really, it makes me sick.
Yeah, his activity and involvement. And Brian, when you touched on in your statement, he was born that way. Unfortunately, the background check didn't capture any of the
Mm,
potential biases here. So I'm wondering, and again, I'm not a psychology guy, but I'm wondering if the power that comes with the badge was the catalyst that maybe unlocked something.
Yep.
Show off in front of your old high school buddies, high profile case. I mean, it doesn't get any more high profile in the media than murder investigations anywhere. So, I'm wondering if, just made it through the state police academy. Oh, by the way, I'm no longer on the street. I made it to a specialty unit. And we went back and forth many short shows
mm,
ago about what was proper punishment.
yeah.
And I made the statement that when you have to leave an office, career wise, that's discipline. And
Hmm.
it just I'm
Yeah.
only suggesting that it comes in different forms, because that takes you into your next career, having those types of bona fides in your resume. It opens doors big time for you.
Hmm.
And when you're disciplined, and you're going to have to explain why you had a short term or a short time, within a very elite division of the department, it doesn't look good for you.
No.
Mm. That's very true. Pete from Boston's adding, said, hey, this is learned behavior. It was reinforced for years in both his personal and professional lives. He was not born that way. And listen, you have your take on this. I think that some of that stuff, just my opinion, is inside. And I think I'm going on the side of what Todd is saying here, is that somewhere along the line, this gets triggered. It's like serial killers, I guess.
Hmm.
They're born that way, and they just get into nefarious stuff. I just watched the that Ed Gein thing. It was a 8-part series on Netflix, and it kind of unwinds his life of how he started to become this notorious serial killer and the trigger points that kind of triggered him into that. So I think that some of that is, and again, I'm not a psychologist either. I'm just speculating here, but I think it's probably some things that are inside that get triggered.
Yep.
So,
And then
but
those around him may also be those, meaning those employed law enforcement personnel were probably enabling him. I do
Mhm.
agree that there's no obstacle to further investigation being opened now to look into who were the recipients of some of these text messages. Were there other law enforcement officers, either at the police level, at the DA
Excuse me.
level, or at the state police level, who were fostering this type of behavior or not disavowing it. I think there will be more questions that arise and more disciplinary proceedings. And also, as the article stated, this will likely affect hundreds of other cases. And to use Miles King as an example, who is innocent until proven guilty,
Right.
but it does appear to some that he may be guilty. And I'm not really going to be on your platform giving my opinion, although I've given it previously on other platforms. But look at this. There were likely racially charged text messages by Proctor. His case will be affected. And ultimately, a lot of different things can happen. Charges can get dismissed. The charges can get downgraded. He could be found not guilty, even though he possibly is guilty. If he is found not guilty, he then could also bring a civil rights action, which will have dramatic, not only newsworthy, but also financial ramifications on the state. So this has far-reaching tentacles, as JFK would, that's to use
JFK.
his term. There's
Yeah.
tentacles here.
Yeah, it's insane. And this is going to drag on for years and years and years. I mean, the ripple effect of this could be, I'm only speculating here, 10, 20 years of cases that he has backlogged that's going to come forward. And, the defense attorneys are just going to have a platter to work with and put through these motions and say, no, let's look at the text messages.
Yeah.
And, judges and prosecutors are going to be battling this for years.
And explain your behavior, former trooper.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, this guy might be called as a witness now for years in trial. And he's going to have to go through every pile of text messages like he did, which I love the torture in this, that he potentially have to get on the stand and explain these text messages. But unfortunately, there probably will be some people that are flat out guilty, and they may end up walking because of his behavior. The lead investigator on a case. It's haunting. It's literally haunting.
Pathetic. It's really pathetic. And to think that his wife, this is my personal opinion,
Sure.
to think that his wife went at people, reached out to some of their employers, has been on mainstream media, defending him. And I understand. I mean, he's her husband, but at the same time, I'm going to not hold my breath waiting for her to come forward with some type of public statement disavowing his conduct. It is conduct unbecoming of a state trooper and frankly of a human being.
Yeah. Oh. All right. Before we get into this, I just want to pop up. Let's just do some of these really quick. Teresa, thank you so much for becoming a new member. Mike G, thank you. NH Dude 603, good to see you here, Steve. Maybe have Nan give you her preference of male fragrance. Okay. Well, okay.
Oh,
I'll check that out.
I have many.
Okay. And then behind Blue Eyes, $5. I could spend hours telling you disgusting stories of my ex-father-in-law, state trooper, now retired, and many co-workers. It's disturbing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So let's see here. In a court filing on Friday, Norfolk County prosecutors said they found images, and here we go. It just adds more to the fire, of intimate body parts and other sensitive information during a review from the Massachusetts State Police former Massachusetts State Police trooper Michael Proctor's personal phone. Prosecutors sought and were granted an order shielding the context of the phone. Stop shielding it. Let's see it. Defense lawyers in cases investigated by Proctor will receive a copy of the extraction, but won't be able to give copies to their clients. Could we say that maybe this gets leaked somewhere? I could see that happening. I could see that happening, and deservingly so.
I don't understand why they can't give a copy to their clients, but that's unusual to me. I was surprised when I read that. But yes, I'm sure it'll get leaked.
Says on phone. Go ahead, Todd. Sorry.
Whether it's leaked or not, it's amazing that what was shared was enough to compel him to withdraw his appeal. Because you could still say there's an argument, all right, whatever's there is there. I can't change the past, but I'm still going to go forward with my argument to try and get my job back.
Yeah. Yeah. Romeo Charlie, look at this. $5 says, Brian, retired cop here. Love what you're doing. Stay focused and stay the course. And of course, and we have these two lovely guests on the show tonight too. If you're new over here, Romeo, we do these every Monday night, usually at 6, 7 o'clock. We have two wonderful people on here that gives their expertise on this. And that's the wonderful thing behind this. Behind Blue Eyes, thanks for the 2. Only gets worse during my divorce towards me. Yikes. Okay. So it says on the phone, prosecutors say they found a text chat with highly sensitive information. This includes images of intimate body parts of people not participating in the chat, screenshots of Facebook posts by non-participant, images and non-participants, full phone numbers and or personal email addresses of the text chain participants, and the name of a sexual assault a victim. Good stuff here. This is the clearest insight to the date about the information that was on Proctor's phone beyond the demeaning text message he sent about Karen Reed during his investigation into the death of boyfriend John O'Keefe. Proctor was in the middle of an appeal. We've already know about this. Material. Let's see this. Let's say they found materials that it was reasonably believed to be discovered on his phone that include texts and chats, as well as a video and audio files, according to the prosecutor. In any case, discoverable evidence must be shared between prosecutors and defense attorneys. The extraction from Proctor's personal phone also recovered emails and photos prosecutors wrote in the court filing last week. Yikes. Yeah. Information from Proctor's personal phone will be turned over in 3 pending murder cases and a case of a woman charged with accessory to murder at the defense lawyer in those cases sought access records from the phone. The case are those of Mile King, Sean Johnson, Javon, that's De Los Santos, and Bianca. I'm going to probably butcher this last name. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to attempt. And it says all were charged with murder. I don't want to be offensive to the person, but I'm going to mess that last name up. Wow. Listen to this. After prosecutors filed the note on October 16th, the union represented the state police withdrew its support for Proctor's appeal, leaving him without an attorney. Proctor withdrew his appeal last week. So goodbye, good riddance. See you later, Michael Proctor. And I'm going to tell you, this is not the last that we're going to probably hear of this guy.
I have a question for Todd on that. Do you have any opinion, Todd, about the withdrawal of the support of the union? Does that impact how you view what has transpired? Is that the death knell, or would that have been the death knell, proverbial death knell, for Proctor in this?
I think any analysis would have been, he's not forthright in coming. There's more really heavy negative stuff that's coming up. And, we talked about this earlier. Whatever it is, Nan, you articulated very well, based on dealing with your clients, like whatever's out there, we just need to know about it. And no one wants to get caught sideways.
Yeah. It's almost like they they don't want to bet on the wrong horse. I apologize for interrupting.
No worries. And I think that's the case, that they're just going to cut their loss based on incomplete, or what's the word, inaccurate information, however you want to frame it. Based on that, we're going to remove our support for Michael Proctor.
So Todd, now he's lost the support of the union. He now loses his lawyer. I'm sure that there's probably a lot of friends, in his life and family members that have probably lost some support. What happens to this guy now? What does he do? Where does he go? Does he ever, I don't really care about him reviving himself. Do normally people like this that smear the badge, smear the occupation, do they end up just kind of getting buried and lost in time? Or what happens to some of these guys?
Well, it's interesting that Proctor is one of the younger guys that I've seen get jammed up. I can share with you the CDL scandal. All of those troopers are friends of mine. I was close with all of them, but they were all, some had already retired, and they were at the end of their career. In this particular case, young family, Proctor's got a young family, no pension that he can pull from. Maybe he becomes a private investigator somewhere. Maybe, yeah. If he decides to stay within that realm of public safety or attached to public safety in some fashion or form. But trying to get on another police department, this has to follow him. It has to.
Nan, you think this guy sees charges?
I think he might. Someone asked that in your chat a short while ago. I think he might. I don't know exactly where they would fit because I haven't seen the text messages. But for example, if there was what appears to be lewd and lascivious content, not just slurs or any subject matters like homophobia or racism, but if there was the sharing of profanity and pictures that are not optimal to be shared, there could be a whole slew of additional charges. Well, not just additional charges that could befall Proctor. So I truly hope that he has previously exhibited some morals when not sharing private pictures of people on their phones. And I was thinking about this when I heard that this broke, and from images and content being captured from 2013, like just in thinking about my phone, like I have pictures of my children. I have pictures of, bath time growing up and that type of thing, which are innocuous to me, but I'd hate for someone to share those. And I have no trust or faith that Proctor could exhibit any restraint in what he would share with other people. It's really disgusting. And I hope that if charges are being contemplated, that there is a follow through. There needs to be a zero tolerance approach to this by Colonel Noble and anyone else who's got eyes and hands on this.
During the trial, when Jackson had Proctor on the stand, I think during cross, he had him read through the list of texts, and one of them was no nudes yet. And at first, I kind of heard that as like a tongue-in-cheek kind of like joking statement, but then after learning more and more, that's a pattern of behavior. It's almost as if his audience was waiting based on past.
Oh, you're very true. Yeah.
Right.
And there's probably multiple text streams about women that he's been involved with in cases and looked at.
100%.
And this is their text stream. And he said, I'm in their phone. Let's see what we got, stuff like that. I mean, look, we heard about it in Karen's case.
But what's
it's
another...
so dead on, Todd.
Sorry to interrupt. There's another interesting part of this, which I haven't heard many people discuss at all, which is there are recipients of these text messages. There are people in these text chains. I am certain some of them were in law enforcement, but whomever those recipients and participants were, whether they were active or passive participants, this case, meaning Karen Reed's case, was in the headlines everywhere. And I am not aware that anyone came forward to talk about the fact that, hey, this wasn't the first time with this guy. We received text messages, or I received text messages that were inappropriate from Proctor. So on a law enforcement level, whomever, pick any law enforcement officer, if he or she had previously received or was on a text chain with Proctor where inappropriate information was either texted or shared, they should have spoken up. And this goes back to a recurrent theme that I know the three amigos have talked about, which is, speak up. You're part of honoring your profession. You can't just sit back and just allow this to happen. And it goes to different cases like Francis Gigliotti, where, people just allowed that pig pile to happen. No one was speaking up. All of the different cases that we've been talking about, I'm really bothered by the fact that there's this just blue wall that no one wants to breach. No one is confident enough to criticize and get bad actors like Proctor in trouble. I'm hoping that tide turns as well. People should be forthcoming to stop behavior like this, or it's going to persist.
There's a a movie called Unlawful Entry. It's
Oh,
got
yeah.
Kirk Douglas and Ray Liotta in it, and
Mhm.
Ray Liotta plays a pretty crazy cop and sees Kirk Douglas's wife one night. They have an intruder or a break-in in their house, and they respond to the call, him and his partner, and he ends up having this, in fact, Ray Liotta's character, the cop, ends up having this infatuation with um, uh, Kirk Douglas's wife, and Madeline Stowe plays her. Wow, this is all coming back to me.
Yeah,
But
I
my
love
bigger
that
point in
movie.
all of this is, after a while of the harassment from, and I almost said Proctor, but this Ray Liotta's character, he goes to see the partner, and he's walking in his house, and he says, "Hey, I need your help. He's after my wife." And he says, I don't know what I can do. I can't help you. And he said, "I
Mhm.
see how this is. And I'm going to the blue wall comment you made, and says, I see how this is, you guys on one side and us on the other." And he turns to him and he says, "Yeah, it's kind of like that." And then he just says, "Come on, man, I really need your help." He walks in his house, but then decides to do the right thing and comes out and gives him the opportunity to speak and listens to
Mhm.
him. And then later in the movie, his partner tries getting to Ray Liotta to say, "Hey, maybe you need to go see a doctor and get yourself checked out." But ultimately, he ends up, Ray Liotta's character kills his partner. But anyway, it's a great movie. Check it out. But I wanted to make that analogy to this situation as well, too. I
That
don't know
is a
how
great
I
movie.
recalled all of that from like the 90s, but I did.
That is a great movie for your audience. You should watch that. Ray
Yeah.
Liotta was like so good in that movie.
Yeah.
And
It's a great movie.
if your crazy cop fix hasn't been satisfied yet, you should watch it.
Yeah, it's a good 90s movie with 3 great actors
Mhm.
in it. So, I digress on that. But yeah, I think this is gonna have major implication for years. And, I get satisfaction if Michael Proctor has to get on a stand over and over and over again with a pile of text messages and explain to explain what was the context of those and what they are. And I'm gonna say this too. I'll add this before we move on to Karen Reed. I love the fact that in trial 2, that Alan Jackson printed out the stack of text messages, and not only didn't have Michael Proctor come up and do it, he had his boss, Yuri Buchanan, uh,
Mhm.
pretty much was going to have him read through all of them. Actually, I think he did have read through most of them. And I remember Yuri saying, "Do you want me to read all of them? I mean, this will take all day." And he's like, said some comment. I forget what it was, but it was pretty good. So fuck him. He
Agreed.
was in those text streams too. He knew what was going on. And to Nan's point, he had the opportunity to say stop.
Yep.
Had the opportunity to say stop. So all right, let's move on to Karen Reed. So we had I guess a bomb drop today in Karen's case. Again, this is just the case that never goes away, and I love it because it just keeps peeling back very crooked things that are going on in the state of Massachusetts. And it's just unfortunate that it took a Karen Reed to go through what she has been through the last over 3 years now in her case to kind of expose all of this. But it has been a massive launching point into some major corruption here. So, Ted Daniel, great job jumping on this today. Karen Reed's legal team demands Boston police officer Commissioner Cox to be placed on the Brady list. And Todd, if you want to explain what the Brady list is really quick, if people don't know in the audience, I will defer to you.
Yeah, so not just law enforcement, but any government official um, that is found to have some level of misconduct can be placed on the Brady list, which then would in turn implicate their testimonial statements in a court of law. So those government officials that are on, and when I say government officials, from law enforcement, public safety, as well as um, um, those that have been um, voted into office from the legislature. So they're a part of that list of government employees. But essentially, their credibility is being challenged, and so that basically the Brady list um, actually certifies their misconduct, and from there, anytime they're testified, that will be brought up in whatever trial is going on.
Right.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate that. says on Monday, Boston police officer Commissioner Michael Cox was a subject of a scathing letter sent to Michelle Wu, Mayor Michelle Wu, from Karen Reed's defense attorney, Alan Jackson, who demanded that the BPT had to be placed on the Boston's Brady list for officers with credibility issues. Jackson's letter centers around Commissioner Cox's comment on July 10th when he denied meeting with the police officer, Kelly Dever. I call her Veruca Saltz, before she was called to testify in Karen Reed's first trial in 24. She was working as dispatch for Canton Police Department when John O'Keefe was found dead. Quote, I have nothing to do with Karen Reed. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know this person was associated with Karen Reed case, Cox said at the time. And you guys saw the mashup video that I put together. You can find it here on my channel. And recently, and I apologize, the Twitter handle on X did a massive public records request, and there was an email that was released, I believe, by the FBI that prepared Cox to say that this is the officer that we're talking about. And it said, and Nan's flipping her hair, and it said Kelly Dever. So he did know about Dever. And here we go. And a copy of the email sent to Boston 25 specialist assistant special agent in charge, Stephen Keller, wrote to Cox and said, just a reminder, the documents were released at the DA's office last night. The officer we spoke with was who? Kelly Dever, Veruca Salt, whatever it is. The next day, Cox official calendar allegedly listed a meeting with Dever. Boston Commissioner Michael Cox has been caught in a lie, and it's not a small one, Jackson writes. God, I love him. Dever, who resigned from her position in September, was called to the stand by Reed's defense team on June 2nd. While Dever was on the stand, the defense implied that Cox influenced her testimony. Dever confirmed that she had a conversation with Cox about the murder case at the same point before taking the stand, but denied getting any guidance. Quote, Cox televised claim that had nothing to do with the Karen Reed and didn't even know this person, Kelly Dever, was associated with Karen Reed's case is a bold-faced lie. Wow. Alan Jackson throwing the heat out there. One now disapproved by document evidence originating from a Federal Bureau of Investigation itself, Jackson writes. For the commissioner to suggest they had nothing to do with the case defies both logic and leadership. Common sense tells us that he had everything to do with it. Jackson also called, on the post commission to initiate a full disciplinary review for dishonesty, lack of candor, and look at this, Todd. We've heard this before. Conduct unbecoming an officer. I'm gonna default to Todd first on this one. God, I love this. Alan Jackson just throwing the punches. If you want to explain post real quick, if people don't know, and give me your thoughts on this.
So first reaction: death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Alan Jackson definitely orchestrating death by 1,000 cuts. Post police officer standards and training. They are the overseer of all things within the Commonwealth regarding municipal police, state police, any disciplinary guidelines eventually make their way through the post review. So,
yep.
Nan, any comments?
Well, what I really love about this most is how I felt when AJ sent a letter about Dever, which was, every bit of 2 months ago. I feel like I'm very happy to see Karen's defense team still working on her case. So while we do have AJ and Liza Little working to help defend the wrongful death suit, I love that you have what an attorney would call due diligence from her criminal defense team in following up post-verdict to make sure there's accountability. And we've talked about that theme for incredible, meaning unbelievable actors in this. And Cox is one of them. And he wasn't even part of the trial. He was just foolish in how
Well,
he
he was in
gave a
Michigan, remember, Nan? He
Yeah,
didn't know he was in
wink,
Michigan.
wink. He was in Michigan, didn't know anything. I mean, in today's day and age, the receipts will come and haunt you. I don't understand how the commissioner of the BPD would have been so incredibly foolish to make such a reckless, provably wrong statement to the media. I mean, provably wrong.
Yeah.
It's not subjective. He can't claim ignorance. He can't say, oops, I didn't understand. He stepped in it, and he stepped in it big time. So this is the type of circumstance where you have a law enforcement officer and one of a high administrative level exhibiting credibility issues, and those have far-reaching effects. And he should be. This is the type of actor who should be placed on a Brady list. So I'm hopeful. I don't know if I can say it will happen, but I'm hopeful that it does happen. And that will, unfortunately, make the streets unsafe or unsafer in Boston. It will cause an undermining of faith in the administrative police scheme in the BPD. It will adversely affect all Boston police cases. It will affect the cases that have Boston PD tentacles in the surrounding jurisdictions to Boston. Anything that would involve the Boston Police Commissioner has now been tainted because of foolish, poorly thought out comments by Cox, where I still scratch my head going, didn't you talk to a PR person before people put mics in your face? He's a liar.
She was grabbing him. You could hear it in the end of that video. She's like, all right, we got to go now. And I love this by Remy. Michigan, Massachusetts. Hey, they both start with M. I love that.
Tit for tat. Tomato, tomato.
I didn't even know that she was part of the case, and they started pulling him out of the, and I love this. Thomas T says the Monty Python CSI.
Yes.
But the fact that he was not prepared for any line of questioning, just you scratch your head and say, what's going on behind the scenes?
Yeah.
What's going on behind the scenes? It was the silence was deafening from BPD during both trials.
The silence was deafening.
Yeah, makes you wonder what was actually really happening.
And she, I think I might have said this on your stream previously, Brian. Dever, whatever, Veruca Salt. She was supposed to testify on a Friday, got bumped to the Monday. So that would have been enough time for Cox and his crew or of cronies to kind of say, where are we going to go with this? Once she testified and clearly identified through the questioning from AJ and her own answers, it was clearly identified that I'm glitching, Todd, just for you. It was clearly identified that there is going to be a he said, she said on this. That is when you sit someone down in your war room and say, how are we going to get ahead of this? What is going to be the public statement? He would have been better served saying those two famous words, no comment.
No comment.
It would have. That gives him plausible deniability. I don't think he's going to be in his position much longer.
Yeah, Dan, I was going to say this has career-ending implications.
100%.
Really? Wow, Todd. Wow, yeah. Wow. And
Big
this
time.
is, What Up is saying, why would Cox lie unless he's trying to hide something? Absolutely.
Yes.
And Thomas T said, good point. Go ahead, Todd.
Sorry, Brian. I just want to add, we're in election year also.
That's right.
Oh.
Very
Is that
true.
an elected position?
No, but Mayor Wu is.
Mayor Wu is.
Okay.
Yep. And Alan Jackson knows that probably, and that's why he sent this letter out to the mayor.
Well, that exhibits to me, and I didn't really appreciate that, but that also exhibits to me not only due diligence from Karen's criminal defense team post-verdict, but it also demonstrates that, and there's nothing wrong with this, folks, that Karen's defense team, which went through years of battle on her behalf and 2 trials during which 24 jurors decided that she did not commit murder, they take this very, very personally. They're not going to let this lie. And I love that. I love that passion from them.
Yeah, and the thing that this does too is it starts clearing Karen's name for the naysayers that keep saying, "Oh, she's lying, she killed him." You know, now they're firing back and hitting all these people that lied in her case to put her in the position that she is. So, you know, from a public standpoint, it's continuing to clear her name of
Yep.
things she's been egregiously lied about, and her name has been slandered and thrown under. So, you know, and just real quick before we move on to the next segment here, we're going to talk Robert Brooks. You know, going back to Proctor, you know, because of all the text messages as well too, do we start possibly seeing some civil, you know, liabilities because of this in those contexts of text messages if those start coming out? Do we see that, Nan? We probably will, right?
Yes, if they're within statutes of limitations, yes, you will start
Yeah.
seeing, and everyone should keep their eye on the mainstream media and the content creators just to see if articles are popping up about that. If I had a client who fell into the crosshairs of Proctor, had any aspect involving the Boston Police Department or Commissioner Cox, if there was
Mm,
any case involving Deaver, I would be looking back and saying, can I look at this and see if it affected my client? And if I have, and I would have an affirmative duty to make sure that I kick the tires and make sure that someone didn't trample on my client's rights. I think you're going to start seeing reversals of convictions. I think you're going to start seeing civil actions that do arise depending on timing of that action and damages that may have resulted.
yeah,
But yes, it's all coming. The
yeah.
reckoning is coming.
I agree. Before we get into the next segment here, we have over 600 people watching tonight. I know probably a lot of you are not subscribed. Please subscribe. You can comment at the chat if you'd like to chat along with us, and smash that like button. And then after this post, please comment. Let us know what you think about our thoughts on the topics this evening. Okay, let's go up to Utica, New York. Last week, we had a decision in Robert Brooks's case. I'm not sure if the both of you got the opportunity to follow, but we're going to talk about that. And I want to play a video here that we can go through of his name is JB Nicholas. He works for the Freelance Reporter. And congratulations, JB. Your work in Robert Brooks's case just made it into the October edition of the New Yorker, which is phenomenal. So his work in that case got cited in the New Yorker. But I want to go to this. I know Todd and I have talked about, Nan has talked about this, and I'm severely disappointed because the thing that really irks me, and I did this all last week when we found out about the verdict here. So Kingsley has been found guilty, and Gallagher and now the other name's gonna slip my mind. Gallagher and let's yeah.
It
So
slips
many
mine
names.
too.
Yeah. Not Walrath, because there's so many people involved. I'll get to it here, and I do apologize, everybody. I've had a lot of names on my mind today, and maybe the chat can help me out here.
Yep.
But I've been very disappointed because 2 get acquitted and 1 gets found guilty. And the thing that irks me about this is that I literally went back through the body cam footage, and I wanted to listen. Kiefer, thank you, AB, thank you. I went back, Todd, and I listened to JB Nicholas breakdown. We went through that, and I wanted to just focus on those 3 names because they're the CEOs that took this to trial. And I'll be honest with you, those names were brought up the most. They were pointed out the most in this video, along with Farina and Anzalone. Their hands were really deep in this as well. But I don't understand it. What did the jury see or not see here? 2 acquitted and 1 found guilty. This is a major, in my opinion, travesty of justice to the Brooks family. And it now sets the tone. And maybe both of you will agree with me here. It now sets the tone that you're basically telling the New York justice system that it's okay to pummel a man to death, and it's okay to not speak up, to not step in and not speak up. I'm going to default. I'll go to Nan first. Nan, your thoughts on
Yeah.
this, and then we'll play basically what the outside or inside perspective, JB Nicholas, what he felt about these acquittals and what was going on in that courtroom. Go ahead, Nan.
This is a classic, what I call a split verdict. And I noticed it when I noticed it through the trial, and when the closing arguments on the Robert Brooks case were coming down, that you had defense attorneys trying to draw lines of distinction between the level of quote unquote misconduct or responsibility of the different correction officers. And at the time, I remember being in your chat on some of your your discussions of this case, Brian, and I kept saying it's never a good thing when a defense attorney is like throwing other defendants under the bus, the co-defendants. But it does seem to me by this split verdict that this jury just found that two of the individuals were not criminally culpable. I'm disappointed. I do think that that does send an indirect message to the state of New York, to other correction officers, and frankly to juries, future jurists, that they can split the baby on this and decide that, well, hey, we're gonna really only impose criminal liability on the ultimately highest culpable party. I think in this case, the prosecutor probably should have charged lesser charges against
Patrick,
the
you did
other
such a great
co-defendants.
job.
And I don't specifically remember what other lesser charges could have been available to that
Yeah, it was
prosecutor.
gang assault. It was gang assault, second-degree murder, and manslaughter were the major charges.
Yeah, like I feel like there are times where and I've never served as a prosecutor, only a criminal defense attorney, but I feel like there are times when a prosecutor has to use a critical eye and make a determination, where can I get a conviction if I have in good faith the evidence that I need to get that conviction? Do I want to hold them all criminally culpable under the same level? But I do think that ultimately the verdict to me is a bit confused. Someone just put in your chat, it seemed a bit senseless, and I agree with that. In fact, I didn't know about the verdict because I was traveling, and you and I talked about it, and I went, oh my God, why did that happen? But ultimately, the gentleman who was convicted, that is the right result.
Kingsley. Yes, Kingsley.
That's the right result. I'm happy to see that. But to be Robert Brooks's loved ones, they're probably left defeated, and they're feeling that they were disserved by the prosecution in this matter.
Before I go to Todd, a couple of things. Do you think that trying them all together kind of screwed this up as well, too? Do you think they should have been tried individually?
So I want to apologize for my dog barking while I'm answering. Normally I hit mute. So she's chiming in. She thinks, my dog Roselle actually thinks that they should have been tried separately if they wanted to get the convictions, all for the same charge. However, it's not what we call economically feasible to do that. I mean, we saw that recently in the Adelson case involving the death of Dan Markell down in Florida, where the prosecution down in Tallahassee has just been knocking out the culpable parties one by one by one by one.
Yeah.
But for judicial economy and to save taxpayer dollars and to just economize the effort that has to be done by a prosecution, you do try them. You tend to try them all at once. The problem is the prosecution, by doing that in Robert Brooks's matter, created this warm environment for everyone to kind of point the finger at the other person. And for some reason, this jury was sympathetic to that and found shades of culpability.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Todd, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Brian, I thought for sure there were going to be more guilties out of this based on, the video evidence, what we all witnessed. There are times where I think a jury will look at all of the parties at trial, and some may have taken the position, well, they lost their job, and that was enough of a punishment. And they kind of fall and settle on other factors And again, I don't agree with that approach, but you never know what a jury is going to come back with. But when I see something where two acquitted, one based on the video evidence, two acquitted, one found guilty of the charges, that just something went on in that jury pool room for them to come up with that.
Oh, we're going to get to that in a second. We're going to get to that because JB Nicholas is going to break this all down for us. And I'm going to pull that video up in a second. I have a question here. Why do you think this was never charged as a hate crime?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I'd have to look at the specific statute in New York to better answer it, but it is a decision of the prosecution. If they decided that looking at the evidence that they had at the time, that it was not in any way motivated by some protected class that Robert Brooks fell into, then the prosecution made a reasoned decision, whether I agree with it or not to pursue that. But I think there is enough evidence to show that there probably was enough to satisfy the hate crime statute itself. That's a good question.
Yeah, same here. I agree, man. Trying to find those elements enough to stick to the charges
could have been tough.
Yeah, it might have been a bit of a reach for them.
They have to, off the top of my head, the prosecution would have to prove that what happened to Robert Brooks was specifically tied to his ethnicity, his race, any of that. You see that more in circumstances where there's someone perhaps of a certain sexual orientation or race, where it is very apparent from the wrongdoing that is the reason why the wrongdoing happened. If it's too extrapolated or tenuous, a prosecutor would likely be justified in not making that decision to pursue that.
Yeah, and I just want to give a lot of credit to Special Prosecutor Fitzpatrick. He did such a great job. He was so passionate about this case. And I mean, there were even times like in his delivery that he got emotional. And, this was probably a very emotional case for him. He gave it his all. And I don't want him to think that he lost. Yeah, you lost by that jury, but you didn't lose by getting this information out and showing what happens behind the walls. I've said this before. Robert Brooks, committed a crime and he was in there doing his time. And we don't know what his life would have been when he was scheduled to be released in 2026. I don't know what Robert Brooks's life. We'll never have that opportunity to know what Robert Brooks's life is now because he was killed. But who knows? He could have gotten out, rehabilitated himself, and became a productive member of society. From what I see and what I've seen in the supportive videos and the family speaking up, looks like he had a really good support system behind him. And it's a damn shame that that this happened to him. It's tragic. It's awful. It's disgusting. And I hope that these COs have to live with this essentially for the rest of their lives, and it never escapes their conscious ever within a day. I hope that they have to hear the name in their head that rings Robert Brooks on a day-by-day, minute, second basis for the rest of their lives. And I'll just even flip this. I mean, now look at the guys that took plea. Do you think they're sitting there saying, gee, we should have taken our chances with a jury? And I don't want to think of that way, but that is another angle here that we could talk about.
I'm sure that's happening. And no one ever knows what a jury is going to do.
You don't.
In criminal and civil actions, every attorney defending a defendant will have a conversation and we'll talk to our client and say, you don't know what a jury's going to do. It depends on so many factors, and sometimes those factors can be as simple as what is the mood of certain jurors on a particular day, or did they like the shoes that you wore? So all of those things can be extremely arbitrary in what weighs on a jury's mind. So it is a gamble. Many times I've had to sit clients down and say, I don't like how this is looking. Even as the trial has gone on, I'll say, I don't love the expressions of these jurors. You might want to consider pleading if it's still on the table. But yes, I think there are probably those who pled saying maybe I should have taken my chances. You just never know. It's like
Yeah,
literally going to Vegas and taking your chances at the craps table.
it's very true. Joy is asking, did you see AJ trying to get Cox, Commissioner Cox on the Brady list? Yes, if you back up probably about 15 minutes, you can catch that segment. We just did a segment on it. Please back up. You can watch it. If not, you can watch it after the show. We give you our thoughts on that as well too. Okay, let's hear JB Nicholas from freelancenews.org. You can go over and subscribe to his channel on YouTube. He's been phenomenal. He's done some spots on Duty Ron about this case. He just got his work recognized in the New Yorker, and we'll play this and we'll get kind of his take on what he thought happened with that jury.
Yesterday in Utica, New York, one state prison guard was convicted of murder and 2 were acquitted for killing Robert Brooks at the Marcy Correctional Facility last December 9th, 2024. I'm JB Nicholas, and I'm a journalist who covered the trial for the freelancenews.org, my news website. I want to talk about the irregularities that I saw throughout this trial that I think infected the fairness of it and led to the acquittal of these 2 officers of murder. So the first irregularity that I witnessed during the trial was the defense lawyers were allowed to make a number of arguments that were based on evidence that was not in the record or didn't exist at all. And some of them can fairly be characterized as straight up lies and disinformation that the defense lawyers, the lawyers for Kiefer, Kingsley, and Gallagher were allowed to spew to the jury without objection from the prosecution and without correction from the trial judge, who was Robert Bauer, a former Oneida County prosecutor. So I'll give you an example. In one of their arguments to the jury, David Longaretta, the lawyer for Nicholas Kiefer, argued that when Farina stuffed a rag down Brooks's throat while he was torturing him before he killed him at the Marcy Correctional Facility, Longaretta argued to the jury that he was just wiping Brooks's face with the rag. Now, everybody knows, just based on looking at the video, that that's false. But Longaretta was allowed to make this comment without any evidence whatsoever in the record. And similarly, all the defense attorneys argued that Marcy was a dangerous place. And it was so dangerous that these, powder puff snowflake guards, just patently outrageous, needed to protect themselves from a handcuffed prisoner who was 145 pounds, 5'7", and handcuffed behind his back. So there was no evidence put in the record about how dangerous Marcy was, a medium security prison compared to other prisons. Now, let's compare that, for example, with a trial that's going on right now in Brooklyn of a guard, a CO, a federal correction officer who chased a guy through the Brooklyn streets who he thought was trying to help smuggle contraband into the jail. So he actually shot at the car by the Brooklyn Bridge, and he's on trial in federal court. And the defense attorneys in that trial tried to submit all this, submit this evidence that the jail in Brooklyn was insane. And, you can't divorce that reality from the perception of this officer. And that got squashed right away by the trial judge. But in this case, in Brooks's case, Judge Bauer allowed these attorneys to make these false arguments without any basis in the record. So that's one of the main, and this happened repeatedly with other issues. I'm just giving you an example. So that's one of the main irregularities that I witnessed in the Robert Brooks murder trial. Now, the second irregularity that I witnessed occurred on the first day of jury deliberations last Wednesday. So the judge instructed the jury on the law and let them retire for deliberations for about a half hour from 4 to 4:30 last Wednesday. And after 4:30, while the jurors were leaving, before the jurors, let me just back up a little bit. Before jurors in a criminal case leave for the day, the judge instructs them not to discuss the case with each other or anybody else. Deliberations have to happen in the jury room for a number of reasons, and they can't be having these extracurricular deliberations, right? So they're instructed not to talk about the case with anybody else. But yet, here we are on the first day of jury deliberations in the parking lot, as 3 jurors are walking to their cars, they're talking about the case.
Wow.
What the fuck? Sorry for my language. What the fuck?
This is unbelievable. This is truly unbelievable. I don't know how there is not a mistrial at this point. That's so improper.
On the first day of deliberation, they were talking.
And by the way, the first part of what he was talking about, where there was misinformation or outright lies being presented to a jury and not corrected or objected to by the prosecution or the judge, who both are empowered to do so, that happens all the time. I'm not saying it's appropriate. I'm just saying that happens all the time. And one of the things that I think people who are not lawyers often don't appreciate is that even when you're not the one questioning, which is a lot of work on its own, well, you've got to be listening. Trials are exhausting. You have to listen to every question, every answer. You can't be reading off of an outline and not listening to the testimony that's coming your way. You have to listen to what your adversary is asking of that particular witness and make sure that it's not objectionable. So I'm really bothered that type of misinformation, specifically the example that he gave with the wiping of the face with a rag. I mean, that is not at all what was in the record. And unfortunately, because no one objected, there's no grounds for any appeal on that. So it's a lot of work to be zealously defending or prosecuting a case. I'm really liking his reporting, and it is unheard of that his reporting would have made its way into the New Yorker. I'm so proud of him.
Yeah.
Did you think maybe because the video had to be entered into as evidence, that the video would speak for itself?
Yes.
And this is a good point too I want to make, Todd, and I'm glad that you said that. You got to think there was no audio to the video, so they're not getting the narration like we got from JB. JB broke this down, and I think that if they would have had that audio and had the context as what's going on, when we listen to the video, it probably would have aided as to what was going on. And that's what I was talking about. I went through his video and I said, all right, everybody, the names we want to concentrate on: Kingsley, Kiefer, Gallagher. How many times are they going to say this? And they were said multiple times over and over again, because he pointed out the parts and the things that they were doing in that video. And maybe the jury just looked at this and really just malazed over it and was only really concentrating on the key people that were up in the front, because we saw Farina. Farina was the one that was stomping, jabbed the rag down his throat, stomped Brooks in the testicles, was pulverizing him multiple times, and then ultimately was one of the ones, I believe, that took him to the back of the room and hung him by his neck. And ultimately that's what killed him. But maybe that's really what the jury was focused. I don't know. It's just weird.
It's very upsetting.
Disappointing.
Walk right by me talking about the case. And not only are they talking about the case, one of the things that I heard them say was that it looks like, one of them said to the other two, it looks like we're going to be here till next week. Now, that's not really the substance of the trial, right? So I didn't think it was like a big thing at the time. So I didn't mention it to anybody. And besides, I kind of prefer to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? So I don't mention it. But I'm mentioning it now because it raises questions considering all the other irregularities that I saw. So what this comment tells me is, immediately at the start of deliberations, there were 2 factions in the jury room who were firmly embedded in their beliefs. One faction believed that all the officers should be acquitted notwithstanding the video and the evidence. Okay. And that's called jury nullification. And that's not supposed to exist in American law. A prime example of jury nullification is in the South during Jim Crow, that the killers of black men were routinely acquitted by juries, right? And this is sort of where federal prosecutions come in. You know, if a jury does this racist jury nullification, then the feds can come in and prosecute you. So that's what jury nullification is. Mm-hmm. Now, it can be used, on the other hand, it can be used for things that other people might consider good. Like, for example, selling marijuana, right? When that was illegal, sometimes people would sit on a jury and just refuse to convict for selling marijuana. So that's another example of jury nullification. It has both sides. It's a controversial issue. And so so there were two factions right off the bat. One that believed that none of them should be convicted, and once the other faction believed that there should be convictions. So these two factions were at loggerheads from the start. The third irregularity. That, what I just said about the jurors talking to each other, that the importance of that, the significance of that didn't really become clear to me until after the trial, when Kingsley was convicted, but Gallagher and Kiefer were acquitted. Mm-hmm. So what that tells me is that's a classic compromise verdict. That the only way to get out of that jury room for these guys, in their minds, was we're going to convict Kingsley because he's on video choking Brooks, but we're going to let these other guys go. And the reason I say I believe that to be the case now, I've done a lot of fact-based reporting. I'm an investigative journalist. Most of my reporting is all based on fact. But right now, I'm going to editorialize a little bit. So this is extrapolation from the facts as I witnessed them. So, and this is based on my experience covering criminal cases going back to 1991, okay? So when the jurors come out of the courtroom, come out of the courthouse after the verdict, the press typically asks them questions. There's a custom. The press can approach jurors. In New York City, they come out of the DA's office and walk to the subway. They don't have an escort or anything. Now, in Oneida County, they had an escort to the parking lot from court officers. So right away, journalists are at a disadvantage because jurors are reluctant to talk in front of the police for fear that they might make them displeasure the police. I'm not even joking about this.
Wow.
So the first group of jurors came out, about 9 of them, and I approached them and I said, hey, I'm a journalist. The public is interested in how you reached your verdict. Can you explain it? And everyone just sort of looked down at their feet. And then suddenly, a young Latina woman stopped in her tracks, turned around, and was hostile and said, we don't want to talk to you, leave. As if she was speaking for the other jurors. Oh. So this hostility, and I reacted to that simply by saying, my name is JB Nicholas. I publish the Freelance News. Please feel free to contact me at your will. I'm just going to walk with you here a little while, in case any of you change your mind. And that really upset that woman. And you would think, her being a young Latina, that maybe she had favored convicting the police. But she was really angry. And I couldn't, I've covered so many trials. I've never encountered hostility from a jury quite like this before. And so it raises a lot of flags, and I'm putting it all together now for you. So then the remainder of the jurors came out, a smaller group, 5 or 6 of them, also under escort. And this time I wasn't alone. Some other reporters had come out of the courthouse at that time and were moving to catch up with the jurors. And again, jurors were hostile. Not only would they decline to talk, they were outright hostile. Mm-hmm. One reporter from the New York Times asked a journalist, another youngish guy, red hair, looked like he might, play video games and smoke a lot of marijuana on the weekend or something. And, he asked him if he was happy with the verdict. And his answer was, what the fuck do you think? We deliberated it. Okay. Wow. So, wow. And it didn't help, by the way, that a court officer was intervening, and he should have intervened. And he was telling jurors, you don't have to answer their questions. Now, if you're a juror and you're being escorted to your car by a court officer, and the court officer is saying you don't have to talk to them, that's pretty much tantamount to an order not to talk to them for the average juror who's not used to defying police authority, you see? So lot of irregularities and red flags, that I would call them, about the Robert Brooks trial and the way it was conducted. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention is that I made a request for copies of the trial exhibits.
Do it.
The trial judge, Judge Robert Bauer, the former prosecutor, and he denied the request. These are public records. Trial exhibits or public records. Courts across the nation are unanimous in their judgment that the evidentiary exhibits in a public trial are public records that the public has the right to access. Yet Judge Bauer suddenly decides that trial exhibits are government secrets.
What?
So there you have it. There's my combined report and sort of analysis. Consider this a news analysis on the Robert Brooks murder trial and what led to the verdict convicting one of the guards and acquitting 2 of them.
Wow.
All right. I need to say at the outset that I love listening to someone with a New York accent. It makes me feel I've been hearing a lot of New England accents in recent months. So, but boy, is that unbelievable. But I loved his reporting. You know, whether it's jurors are not supposed to talk to each other. I mean, really, the instruction they're generally given is if you want to talk about sports or the weather, talk about sports or the weather, and that's about it. The fact that they were escorted to their vehicles post verdict and gave the attitude, or one or more of them gave the attitude in a very New York way, no less. That's inappropriate too. And it sounds like there was motivation going on in the process of deliberation and the ultimate reaching of this verdict that is questionable and suspect. And then to have the trial judge gatekeep the release of public information post-trial. That is taxpayer dollars. Those are publicly relevant information to be consumed by the public. I understand possibly if there was a time limit to be imposed, like we're not releasing, like if you recall the evidence in the Koberger action wasn't just released immediately. There were, and many times the identities of jurors are not released immediately post verdict. But there is no reason why this judge should refuse an order like that. So now I'm really invested in trying to figure out what's going on.
Do you think that maybe some people knew some people?
Sounds like it.
You think?
Yeah, Todd, what you thinking there? You thinking the same thing I was?
Well, I'm just going to say this. God bless to the independent journalists out there. You guys are doing yeoman's work in just exposing, I'm not, JB was kind when he said irregularities. He was kind using that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you like to think that the symbol of our justice system, that justice is blind and we're fact finders, and not the case.
Yeah.
Not
This is
always
wild. Yeah, it's wild. It's sad. It's very disappointing. There's one more CO that goes on trial in January. Of course, I will follow up and continue to follow. I'm sure JB will be there on scene. And I was going to have him on now. I was going to try to get him to have him on. I want to wait until that trial concludes and then if I can get him to come on the show, maybe we can get him on to come on with the 3 of us and have a conversation about, what he thinks and what's going on up in there in Marcy. I'd love to hear his take on this. But phenomenal reporting. JB Nicholas, go over and subscribe to his channel. Check him out at freelancereporter.org, I believe his website was, where you can check out his reporting on the Robert Brooks case in the now October edition, which is going to be pretty much soon November, of the New Yorker. So really good stuff. Real quick, I want to end with this, Todd. And I have a question for you. And I said this backstage. I said, I got a question about Kelsey Fitzsimmons' case that I want to ask you. And I didn't want to ask you backstage because I wanted to hear your natural reaction. And I'm curious how you're going to react to this. But I don't know how much you've been following the case, but on the night of the occurrence in Kelsey's case, they went to serve her an order, a restraining order, and to take her baby. And she went up into, I believe, a bedroom, and there were 3 officers there. And what they said was she raised her firearms. So they never took her firearms. They never secured her firearms before entering the house. She raised her. This is what the prosecution, what the police are saying. She raised her firearm and pointed it at them. And that was the reason that she got shot. The defense is arguing, and Kelsey's arguing, that she became suicidal and pointed the gun at herself, I think to her temple or head. If that is the case, and let's just make this, if that is the case, how often have you ever seen or heard of police officers using lethal force to stop someone from potentially unaliving themselves. Does that happen?
So the way the law reads, that a police officer, and I'll try and do it methodically here. The responding police officers would have observed behavior consistent with serious bodily injury and or death, and they are then justified to deploy lethal force to stop that behavior. Now, if the account that was written by the police officers that she was attempting to unalive herself, that would
No,
justify.
the account. I'm sorry. The account. I'm just stop here so we don't get confused. The account from the officers were that they came to take her baby, and she pointed the pistol at them. So that's what they're saying. Now, Kelsey and her defense team, Tim Bradle, is saying that she actually held the pistol to herself, or firearm to herself. That's what I'm trying to get at. So let me add a little bit more here. If someone's holding a weapon to their head, wouldn't it be a potential danger for a police officer to just shoot them, fearing that the gun could go off or be pulled? Trigger?
So let's go with the first scenario. Guns being pointed at them, they're justified lethal in deploying force on force, lethal force on lethal force. So now the decision, based on defense, she wasn't pointing the gun at herself. It doesn't change the scenario. You still have a potential for serious bodily injury and or death. And also keep in mind that sometimes police officers have to protect individuals from themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very complex process to justify lethal force in that scenario. However, that doesn't minimize the fact that a firearm is in the consideration for those responding officers on how they're going to deal with that.
A follow-up to that question might be, in entering the home, would there be a protocol in place that the officers should follow to secure the weapons first, to make sure that any weapons are secured, so that in this instance Kelsey is not a risk to herself or others and in causing bodily harm? Is there a process that they would employ that you know of?
I would have thought that she should have been maybe removed from the residence based on the fact that she is a police officer, a highly probable scenario of guns being in the home, and just limiting her access to bedrooms, closets. You just move her out, and that would have to be accompanied inside of the the order that they were serving, right?
And she was cleared to go back to work, and actually was at the department, I think, just a couple of days previous to this.
Yes.
Why not do it then? Or not? Why not wait until she arrives at the station? You're in a safe environment. You take her into her room. You say, "Hey, here's an order. Unfortunately, we're going to take the baby to protect the baby," and you have control in that situation, Todd. Why go into a house, like you said, where there's the potentiality of all this activity that could occur, and look what happened?
There could have been a decision where harm was imminent towards the child, and to wait could have been detrimental. That's a scenario that could be factored in as well. So, but you make a great point, Brian, in that, what is the least, how can
evasive
way to minimize potential harm? And the only thing I would say to counter that is that could have been a decision that the child was at harm if they didn't act immediately.
Yeah. Of course, Your Honor said, why only one officer and two at the door outside? One officer could have gotten the baby. It's a good point. It's a very good point. What Up says, good point, man. They should have done done that, meaning do it at the station, but it was mostly like an ambush that was pretty much an ambush to Kelsey. It's a very interesting case. I've started to look into it. I know Mazza Media has done a ton on this. Mike from the Young Jerks has done a ton of work on this case. They've kind of turned me on to it. Again, I'm still gathering, all the scenarios. I had Mike on my show a week or 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. We talked about this case. So I'm still really new to it and fresh to it and learning, but I had these questions and I wanted to see, what you would say in this situation. And I appreciate that. And I just look at it and go, I've never really seen a scenario where someone's been shot if they're going to unalive themselves, and especially having a gun to their head with the potentiality of that going off. And then two, the other question I have is, if this is going to be a highly volatile situation, well, why not just wait for her to come to the station and say, hey, we have an issue. We need to sit down, de-escalate. We're going to talk about this here, and this is what's going to happen. Just would have been a lot more easier and safer scenario, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think one of the themes I'm taking away from Todd on this is there's no one answer, that it's really dependent on the facts and perceptions, and by perceptions also to include who is at risk. Is it herself? Is it other people? Is it the child? And all of these, I'm not law enforcement. I have to imagine some of these decisions have to be made very quickly. I agree with you, Brian, that some of these decisions probably would never have needed to be made on such a quick reactive basis had more affirmative planning been done, whether it was to have her exit the house or to have this type of encounter at the police station. But ultimately, the facts will come out. And I'm definitely, at this point, I am throwing whatever support I have to Kelsey.
Yeah, I agree.
Because she has, for all indications are that she has a factual, credible story to defend herself. And I know she's actively been watching content creators. So I have a little bracelet to
awesome.
free her. And I'm supporting her justice for Kelsey at this time.
And no body cam footage. The department doesn't.
No.
Yep.
And the thing that's just what was I going to add to this? Damn it, just slipped my mind.
No body cam.
Yeah, no body
which
cam.
Still befuddles me. I don't understand that. That's like not having a cell phone in my mind at this point. I don't understand.
Oh, I know what I want to say. Yeah, and then they put this order in because, get this, Todd, they put this order in because someone went to the prosecutor or something, and I may get the story wrong, and the chat will probably correct me because, again, I'm still kind of absorbing this case, and said something that stemmed, because of the complaint that it started, basically this domestic started at a party in Maine, and she had been drinking, and this had been brought up. So they wanted her to blow into a device at home, the alcohol device, because of this comment. And she couldn't because of her lung capacity. She just spent like 60 days in the hospital, I think, had come out. And this was an order of her condition to be out of court. And she can't blow into this device. So they just revoke her bail and they're like, throw her in jail. It's insane. I've never even heard of anything like, not an ankle monitor, not anything like that, because you can't blow into a monitor. Where she's now in jail. She's sitting in jail. It's insane. And criminals that do worse things than this are out on bail and able to walk the streets. It's just insane.
And she has, and Todd, this might be an interesting case just because of the nuances and the subjectivity involved of the law enforcement. But Kelsey was unable to comply, or at least was having tremendous difficulty complying with scram monitoring for alcohol, which was a condition of bail, and did not comply with it. Her attorney, Timothy Bradle, went to the court a few weeks back and asked for an accommodation, saying it's posing an undue hardship on her. It's causing her physical pain to have to comply with this. And he
Excuse me.
asked the court before there was any non-compliance for an accommodation, and the court wasn't having anything to do with that. Did not want to grant the relief that he was seeking, and which I found very draconian, to be honest with you. I did not understand why the court was so strident in denying some other accommodation to monitor alcohol usage. And alcohol usage wasn't even tied to the events at issue here. She was a mother suffering from postpartum depression. There were, or appear to have been, clear, at least mental health related issues postpartum. Now the baby has been separated from the mother. She is in jail. It's a very sad story, regardless of where anyone falls on it in terms of culpability. So it definitely has teeth to it that may interest you. If you ever want to discuss this case offline, I'd be happy to.
And we'll end with this one before we wrap it up here. And I want to thank both of my guests here, retired Mass State Police Todd McGhee and attorney Nan Gallagher. They join me on Monday nights at 6 or 7 o'clock. We usually do this, and we talk about, cases that are happening in around mostly Massachusetts, but we as you see, we get into other cases as well too. And I always love to hear their expertise and insights in this. And when we love having the chat here, we appreciate all of the support here. You guys are amazing. But let's end with this. So Todd, where would her rep be?
Yeah, if the rep is involved, is really the role to keep her employment intact. He doesn't have the authority to get her out of jail, serve in the capacity of an attorney. So, that's really the union rep's role, is to make sure she's not railroaded out of her employment.
Yeah. Wild case, very wild case, something that, we'll keep our eyes on here. And I want to commend Mike from the Young Jerks really tackling this case. He had one of Kelsey's friends on his channel this evening. I'm going to have to go back and dip in and watch that. And Mark Mazza Media has been doing phenomenal fundraising for Kelsey. And I think that he has another one coming up this Saturday. So stay tuned for that if you want to help Kelsey. I was just out at with Nan, about 2 weeks ago, we did the nacho night for Kelsey. A week ago, yeah. We did the nacho night for Kelsey, and I know that I'll go out there and go out and support again when I can get out that way. So yeah, well, thank you both of you for lending me your time this evening on Monday. What a phenomenal show. I love all the feedback and insight, and that's what we do here. We just try to give good context and content here back to the audience. And if you like what we're doing here, like I said, smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, get it out in the algorithm for us, and then make sure to comment after this video. So with that being said, that is Todd McGhee. That is Nan Gallagher. I'm LTL, and we'll see you next Monday night. Goodbye, everybody. Good night.
Good
Be
night.
safe. Bye-bye.